let's talk about Murph. Let's see what we can do. Let's see what kind of strategies we come up with. The most basic, the most common one to do Murph in is to break down the 100, 200, 300 into 20 rounds of 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 air squats. And it's a pretty good, solid strategy, especially if you can do everything unbroken. And I think that's generally how I decide, like, what's the best strategy to do this workout at, is whatever you can do roughly about 30 seconds per round, and you can do all the rounds unbroken. If you have to start breaking it up, I think it's better to go with the rounds to be unbroken, whatever number that might be. There's a handful different ones and there's a couple esoteric ones out there that I've just read. So for example, 4, 8, 12 for 25 rounds, done on the minute with a 7-minute mile to start and an 8-minute mile to finish, and 25 rounds in between will result in a sub 40 Murph, which is pretty good whether vest or not. And it's a very, very good strategy. I've had some people do before, and they did 33 rounds of 3, 6, and 9, and one of the rounds is 4, 8, 12 to make sure it adds up to 99, not to 99, but 100 and so forth. I've recently seen even the 2, 4, 8, and I'm actually considering doing that one myself just to see if that's a viable strategy in a vest. So instead of normally I would do a round on the minute roughly with the weighted vest 4 or 12. What if I do every 30 seconds and then it's about 15 seconds a round, 15 seconds rest, and just rotate through that and see if it's reasonable, just because I've never tried it. I've recently read another one that was kind of somewhat interesting, where it's like 5 pull-ups, 10 air squats, 10 push-ups, 10 air squats. You do 15 rounds of that with 20 air squats per round, but then after 15 rounds, the 300 air squats are done. And so the last 5 rounds, it's just pull-ups and push-ups. This way your legs are fresher for the round. I'm not sure how I feel about that strategy, but I've now seen it. I've seen some like backwards numbers where, because it says partition any way you want and do it in whatever fashion or whatever you like. And kind of if something strikes your fancy and I haven't mentioned or anything like that, try it or run it by me. And we can kind of come up, see if it sounds reasonable or if it's a little bit on the kookier side of things. But also Murph is just a workout by the end of the day. It's not even that hard of a workout. It's longer, but it's not terribly hard because you can just slow down and still finish it. Whereas things like nukes and Kalsu, where you have to either run a mile in under 8 minutes, or it doesn't even continue on, or the Kalsu, where if you don't do your burpees, you immediately DNF. And so those are the workouts that are hard. And I find myself deciding between what's a hard workout and what's not. A hard workout requires not just that it's brutal in the day of doing it, but it's also brutal and challenging or just tedious in preparation for it. So to develop the work capacity for Kalsu, to develop the work capacity for nukes, you have to you have to spend quite a long time training at a fairly challenging level. Whereas for Murph, as long as you can do, say 10 kipping pull-ups, even 5 strict pull-ups, and you can do 20 push-ups in a row, 15, 20 push-ups in a row, you'll be able to finish it. It might take an hour or so, but you can finish it. And so that's why it just becomes long. It's not really that hard. So as far as how to decide what kind of pace, what kind of rounds you want to do, I would suggest keeping your rounds in about whatever you can do in 25 seconds. If you have a way to test it, I would even come potentially before the class and run around through it real quick and test to see how long it takes. So you can do like 4 pull-ups, 8 push-ups, 12 squats. If it takes you about 20-25 seconds, that's on the money. This way, when we do it on the minute, we have a little bit more than 1-to-1 rest ratio, and that usually is okay to recover from. If your work capacity is real high, you might be able to recover to like a 60-40, so like 35 seconds of work, 25 seconds of rest maintained for 20 minutes or something like that. But for most normal people, it's better to do either 50-50 or even a 40-60 split, where it's like 25 seconds of work, 35 seconds of rest, and that might be sustainable for most of the time. And if it stops being sustainable and you start finding yourself inefficient, what you want to do is just slow down a little bit, or even take an empty minute. So if you're doing Murph in like 20 rounds, then I would say do like 10 rounds, rest a bit, 5 more rounds, rest a bit, and then finish your 5 and go. Or if you're doing it in 25, do like 10 rounds, rest an extra minute, 20 or 10 rounds, rest an extra minute, 5 rounds, and get out the door. This way, the rounds themselves stay efficient instead of, you know, just standing around. You do your pull-ups, you stand, then you do your push-up, rest on the floor. If you're doing the rounds, or you're doing the work, do the work. If you're resting, you rest. Don't be kind of trying to rest while you're working and trying to rush into the next round. And the way I do it, so if I come in and let's say we had like, I don't know, let's say we had 7:20. So I would rest probably till the full 8-minute mark. You just do your first round, and at 9 minutes you do your second, and at 10 minutes you do your third, round after round after round, nice and consistent, instead of just kind of starting off fast and then it all goes coming crashing down after, 5 rounds in because you just went out the gate too quick. So plan on that rest accordingly from the very, very beginning. And as one of the things I want to do too is I actually want to do the 246 real quick. Just see how long it takes me per round. No vest or nothing like that. Just out of curiosity, so I'm going to start the clock. Alright, so set it 17 seconds. It's always fun doing things without a warm-up, because once you warm up, usually it's pretty easy, but if it's the very first thing you do, it's usually, you can catch your breath real well and stuff like that. So anyways, I probably wouldn't do this 2-4-8, because by the time you reach, drop, stand, reach, drop, stand, reach, drop, stand, I think a lot of times we'll be lost in transition, even with me setting up. This is about as efficient of a setup as I know, as far as you do your pull-ups, do your push-ups, and then out of the first push-up, like when I finish here, right into the bottom of the squats, because the standing up part of the squat counts as one. Going down doesn't in the same way when we do a squat, front squat. We can do the squat clean first, even though we never get the bar that high. And so it was taking me like 17 seconds around, not quite enough time to rest, and with a vest the fatigue would set in a little more. So going like 2-4-6 every 40 seconds might be doable, but I'd have to calculate what that is time-wise. It's whatever that math is, I think it just will be too slow. I don't think it's really worth the hassle, but I might run it through. And then that's it. But as far as one of the biggest things about Murph is try to do like it's very common to start doing the air squats like this, especially not going all the way down. Or even if we like try to extend the hips, going like this. And so it looks more like a party on a Friday night at the club rather than actual workout. And shouldn't do that. The push-ups, and the pull-ups become just. And then it ends up turning into just a complete shit show. What's the point of honoring somebody and then just cheating and doing crappy work? All the Murph times, a lot of the Murph times are generally somewhat suspect because there's so many bad reps. I mean, so what's the point of? And you see videos shared of Murph being done and so forth. That's just a bunch of crappy form, or especially with doing the push-ups, not just, we want chest hitting the deck and elbows like that. We don't want to be doing it. Also, we don't want to be doing just thighs on the ground, thighs on the ground. all that kind of jazz. Just, I don't know if it's decency or quality control or whatever it might be, but it does bug me. Not exactly the biggest issue in the world, but still. So try to do the reps with the best quality that you can and slow down if you need to, but each air squat especially, stand up and then have a slight lean back, so it's not just knees straight, but body straight, the pull-ups chin over the bar, and then the push-ups are push-ups, but, that's between you and yourself doing the Murph. And I think that's it. Nothing really more to it. So 2 more days and we go at it, and then we have 5 more days of hero workouts coming up. All right, as I was shooting just the general ideas about the hero week and so forth, I realized 2 important things about the Murph. A, don't get hammered the night before. That's usually really good advice before we do in Murph, because the last thing you want is to get dehydrated and pass out or just be that guy or something like that. And then number 2, to warm up for Murph, like what do you do to warm up for Murph other than just stretch and so forth? I actually really like to warm up some squat snatches for it, or at least power snatch overhead squat, because it'll stretch you out real well, make sure that everything works pretty good. It'll warm up your grip so that when you jump on the pull-up bar, it's not it's not just a sudden kind of jump and you go from nothing on the pull-up bar to full body weight. Yeah, just warming up some snatches will warm up your grip for the pull-ups, will open up your squats, open up your chest for the push-ups and all that kind of stuff, open up your hips and stretch them hamstrings for the run-in. And that's all I really do. I don't do anything else, and that's my personal preference for it. But ultimately, the first mile will be a decent warm-up, and then you got about 1,000 rounds to warm things up, so it's not that critical. And hopefully we'll all have fun doing it. Great success.